Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm Steve Down and this is my guitar. Welcome to episode 4 of our study on Mule by Kenny Burrell. Has taken a little bit of time to get this one out, and I'm now in a new studio. I've moved my teaching space and I've moved my studio, and so we're here from now on, which is really super exciting. So I'm sorry for the delay, but we are here with episode 4, and episode 5 will be coming really soon. This one is the last episode on his solo. The next one is going to be on his comping underneath the sax solo that's on there. So today we're going to take a look at his use of sixth chords in his solos, and also we're going to look at sextuplets. We're going to look at some rhythmic displacement. We're going to look at approach notes using slides, and we're also going to look at the turnaround that we've got at the end, which is kind of gospel in a way at the end. So that's all to come in today's episode. As I said, next week we're going to take a look purely at his comping underneath the sax player's solo. Before we get into the episode, I want to say a big thanks to my patrons who've supported me, and there are many of you. There's been loads of you that have signed up over the last month whilst I've been away touring with Joss Stone. I should have mentioned that I've actually been made MD of her band now. So if you go onto my Instagram, which is at Steve Down Guitar, you'll see some of the pictures and some footage of what I've been doing with the band whilst we've been out touring in South America. But whilst I've been out there, I've been putting some pictures up on the Patreon channel, and big thanks to these patrons who signed up since I've been out there. Chris, SMH, Milan, Bar, Trent, Luca, Kent, Damon, Eugene, Jay, Sheldon, Damien, Alan, and Marty. There's been a few more, but my list doesn't seem to update on my phone any more than 30 days. So big thanks to everyone who signed up over the last month and a bit. You do make the wheels keep going round on this Patreon channel, so thanks so much for that. If you want to sign up to Patreon, the link is on the screen, www.patreon.com/Exeter Guitar Lessons, and there you're going to get the full transcription of the solo. You're going to get all of the exercise chord scale packs, and then you'll also get the backing track, and you'll get a few extra things on there as well, and everything else that's on my YouTube channel is also on that site as well. The monthly subscription for Patreon starts at $3, so it's really, really cheap for all of that stuff. But if you don't want to do a monthly subscription, you can just buy me a coffee. There's a link below as a one-off thanks for the video. And as always, please do like and subscribe, place a comment below, and hit the bell if you want to get updates on when my new videos do come up. So thanks to everyone for their support. There's all the places you can go. So after that blurb, let's get on with the rest of the episode. So here are bars 1 to 3 randomly. You'll find out in a minute. Okay, I've cut this at bar 3, the end of bar 3, because in bar 4, there's a cool little sextuplet thing that I want to kind of tackle next. So the thing to note here is he's using something called sixths. Sixths are intervals, and this is a kind of thing that is used an awful lot in blues. So you'll hear this kind of sound in blues all of the time. This is not in soloing, this example. This is purely if you wanted to accompany someone, but it's just to give you an example of what it sounds like. So here's that. So a sixth, which we've got there, is just these two notes, B flat and G there. So what we're really doing is kind of sliding between there, and you'll hear that all of the time in in blues. It gets used loads. Like Soul Man, the tune by Sam Dave's got that at the beginning of it. Van Morrison's Brown Eyed Girl's got sixths at the beginning of it. That's generally the sound of sixths, but you get it underneath a lot of 12-bar blues tunes. And he's added in an extra note in the middle there to harmonise, so you get this and on there. He doesn't actually go up to there in the tune. I've just kind of extrapolated it out, that's all, to give you an idea. And then here's an example of me doing exactly the same thing as what Kenny's doing. So the way that Kenny's using this is he's actually playing some of these little chord grabs using sixths, and then some other chords as well, some other extended chords, and then playing little licks in between that. And this is a really cool way of playing. It's a very traditional blues way of playing, so you can try that in your own solos. Here's an example of me doing that. I'm not using any of his other extended chords. I'm just using this sixth idea because I think it's pretty cool. So here's an example of that, which is just over bars 1 to 3. Okay, so let's take a look at bars 4, 5, and 6. Here they are. So what Kenny's doing here is he's split the quarter note into 6 equal notes, and we call this sextuplets. And you'll see that on the sheet as 6 semiquavers with a 6 underneath it, and that's to denote that those 6 belong to one quarter note subdivision, and so you'll get 4 of those groups, 4 of those sets within one bar if you're in 4/4. Now this can be quite tricky to play, and the best way of practicing it is just with one note, and then you can practice it. I've actually put a little lick that's similar to what he uses at the end of this exercise. Use strict alternate picking with it, but do try an accent on beat 1 so you don't get lost in the flow of these 6 notes per beat, if that makes sense. So here's the exercise here. And so you'll see that we've got that little lick at the end there, which is a good one to practice because it's similar to what Kenny uses, and it's similar to the example that I'm about to show you as well. Do start off slowly and make sure you're using alternate picking. The down pick will fall on, if you're doing it correctly, the down pick will fall on the beginning of each quarter note on there, so you don't have to worry about thinking too much about your alternate picking in your right hand. It will just fall in there. Just make sure you accent it, so like I said, you don't get lost, and keep a click going in behind. That also helps as well. So here's an example of me using the kind of idea that Kenny's using, using all of those chromatic notes, but over the top of a major/minor pentatonic. We're not really sure what he was thinking there. I'm pretty sure that it's kind of a major pentatonic idea that he's trying to get in there, but he's added in a lot of other chromatic notes, and some of those are from the minor pentatonic scale. So that's what he's used, and I've used it as well. I've also kind of gone from this position here, which I would call position 1, up to position 2 of the minor pentatonic, and then obviously I've added in that major note there as well to kind of give that mix of major and minor pentatonic. I've extended the idea out into bars 5 and 6 as well to kind of set up what we're going to look at in bar 7 in a minute. So here's my example of me using those sextuplets. Okay, so let's take a look at bars 7 and 8 of Kenny's solo. Okay, so this bar here deals with something which is a little bit tricky. It's called displacement. And here, displacement is basically where your phrase, however many notes that phrase is, and that does include rests as well, is displaced within the bar. So it's not starting on beat 1. So when we go back a little bit and we go into bars 5 and 6, we can see that Kenny's setting up that idea, because he's setting up with So he's starting it with on beat 1, okay? And then on beat 3, and then on beat 1 again, and then on beat 3 again in the next bar. So it's nice and even. Now, when we get into bars 7 and 8, he actually stops putting them on beats 1 and 3. He starts it on beat 1, but then he actually brings the next phrase forward slightly, so you get this sound. So there, we're not waiting for beat 3. We're actually just going straight on to the next phrase there. And it's even each time. So there's 6 parts to it. We start off with 3 notes and a rest, and then a double stop and a rest after that. So you've got in there these 6 parts, but he's not waiting to start on beat 3. He's just going straight into it. So you get that. And then he resolves it when he goes to this rundown of the minor pentatonic, which is a classic Kenny thing to do. Now, this is known as displacement here, so we're moving the phrase around in the bar. So instead of starting on beats 1 or beats 3, we might start it on the and of beat 1, or we might start it on the last semiquaver of beat 1, or anywhere else in the bar. It's a good idea to try and do this, to try and start your phrases in different places on the bar, because it does give a nice rhythmic tension that you can then resolve. The other type of rhythmic displacement that you can do, which is slightly easier if you want to start off with something easy to kind of give some rhythmic tension, is something that Kenny's used before, and this is basically where you'll use odd note groupings. So instead of using groupings that are even, so groups of 2, groups of 4, or groups of 6, you're actually using groups of 5 or 7 or 9. So in this example, I'm actually using groups of 5. So here's an exercise first, before you get into my example, an exercise of actually playing triplets, but what you're doing is you're accenting on every 5th note. So here's that. And then here's an example of me using that in the solo. So like I said, this is a slightly easier example of using some displacement. Okay, let's take a look at bars 9 to 10 of Kenny's solo. Okay, so here Kenny's using something which we call approach notes or neighbor notes, and this is a nice classic jazzy technique. If you want to make anything sound really, really jazzy, one of the ways to do it is to use these approach notes, because they're used quite a lot in all melodic instruments. So an approach note is basically where you're sliding into your main note from underneath or from above. Like that. Good way of practicing it is by using a dominant 7th arpeggio. So a G dominant 7th arpeggio, or an F dominant 7th arpeggio, or why not use both, and slide into each note from below. Okay, and Kenny's using some of this idea here. He's actually using a double stop here. So he's using that there and sliding into his main note that he wants, because he wants to have this 5th, this C and G, and he's sliding into the G from below, like that. Okay, and then you also see it as there when we've got this minor 3rd, the E flat and the G, and then we hammer on this time. The articulation's a hammer on, going from the E flat to the E there. So you'll see it all over there. Kenny's using it all the time. So all of those kind of things, they're all known as approach notes there, or neighbor notes. So here's an example of me using that in the same place in the solo. Okay, so let's take a look at the last 2 bars of this particular head. Okay, so this is Kenny basically approaching this turnaround. Now, I've never really spoken too much about this turnaround. It's what I would call a gospel turnaround. So instead of it being a traditional turnaround where it's just a bar of 1 and a bar of 5, or a bar of 1 and then a sharpened fifth, and then going back to the fifth there. What we've got here is something which is actually creating more of a melodic bass line underneath, because we get this C, E, F, F sharp, G, and then A flat to G at the end there, which is that classic thing I just said there. I called it a sharpened fifth on there because that's kind of what I would call the chord there. You may well have other names for it, but I call it a sharpened fifth going to a natural fifth there, or a diatonic fifth. So the chords that we've got here that are going underneath it are C, just the standard C major, and then a first inversion C major, which basically means that you've got the third in the lowest note, the bass. And then we're going to the 4 chord, so that's F. So already we've got this movement, this chromatic movement, F. And then we've got a sharp 4, a diminished sharp 4, which is what you get to usually in quite a lot of gospel blues to bridge the gap between the 4 and the 5 chord. So 4 going to diminished sharp 4, which is F sharp diminished. And then we've got a second inversion C chord, which basically means that we've got the 5th in the bass, so the G is in the bass. Okay, and then at the end there we've got that sharp 5 to 5 movement at the end. So, okay, here's those chords close up. And then underneath it, this kind of explains, what's going on when we've got this, okay, all of that stuff that he's doing. Sometimes it's forward, sometimes it's backwards, but what that explains why we've got this F and F sharp and G that's in there. My example is extrapolating it fully out, and I'm going all the way chromatically up from E, so I'm going E, F, F sharp, G, and then A, B flat, B, to resolve onto the C there. Now, that's just me extrapolating it out to its nth degree. You could literally just go... something like that to end it. But it's a really nice way of putting a turnaround into a blues. It's an option rather than using just 1 to 5 or 1, 6, 2, 5. It's an option that you can put into any of your blues solos if you want to, or into the harmony if you're accompanying underneath. And why not just swap it up? One chorus you could do 1 to 5, one chorus you could do this particular gospel movement, and then another chorus you could do 6, 2, 5, 1 at the end. It's completely up to you. Okay, well done for getting through all of that. That was a fairly packed episode. So make sure that you go over to Patreon. There's the link there. Get the exercise chord scale pack over there and use some of these examples in your solos. And then drop back next time. It should have another one out in a couple of weeks' time or so on the accompaniment underneath this sax solo that's going on in this tune. Well done for getting through all of this. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and also drop a comment below if you've got anything to say, or if you just want to give me an update on your practice or whatever. And other than that, I will see you in the next video. Bye.